I give value to this church from the moments that I manage, not the minutes that I log.
You wouldn't actually have fired him?
I think I might have. I want you to equip the saints for the work of the ministry.
Leadership's biggest test of their worth is in a crisis.
There's a time for everybody in the trenches, and then there's a time for this is the moment I have to steward.
Well, Dad, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Probably in December, we started an episode, and I started it and I said, I want to talk about delegating and empowering and time management. And then we ended up just talking about old stories from your life and why you became a pastor. And so it went a totally different
One of the
vein.
lowest viewed.
No, it was a
just
good
kidding.
it was a good episode, but my purpose when I sat down there probably 5 months ago was to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And so, Lord willing, we don't get derailed again, but we actually can talk about this. In your book Fix It, you talk about this concept, minutes versus moments.
Right.
And can you start us off with what is the concept minutes versus moments, and how did you learn that lesson?
Yeah, I love this concept, minutes versus moments. And as soon as I shared it, Brad Lomenick was at a thing that I shared it at, and he goes, I'm so stealing that. I was like, you can't. It's my idea. I think it's going to be in my next book, so you can't steal it. So
Ed Young one time came up to us at a conference. He goes, hey, kids, I want to teach you something. God gave you eyes, plagiarize. And I'm like, what?
he still says that today.
I think I was 10 years old.
Yeah, and you're like, no, I get in trouble at school. But anyways, the concept was this. When I was growing in the church and the responsibilities, I was feeling guilty that I wasn't doing the same things I used to do, and that I was handing things off and delegating and saying, could you take care of that? Could you take care of that? And I felt like I was not being responsible, not being like a good leader. I wasn't even giving good value to the church. And then I realized, wait a minute, I got to change my thinking here. I give value to this church from the moments that I manage, not the minutes that I log. And if your first job, like I remember I worked at Key Cadillac for my dad. He was a service manager there, and he got me a job. And I punched the clock. I did my minutes. Then I worked as a busboy at Lee's Barbecue. Again, clock in, clock out. I never got paid to not be there. I had to be there doing minutes. And I wanted to show you, like, if you were paying me $3.75 an hour or whatever I made, I'm worth $6.75. Like, I'm going to give you great value with my minutes. And all my life, I was minutes. Even my father was in the auto business, and when you'd work on a car, you'd put down like it was 1 hour and 30 minutes, and you get paid for the amount of minutes you worked on the car. And so that was my mentality, minutes. I had never been in leadership and realized that I'm getting paid for the moments that I steward, that I take care of. And there's a lot of them as a pastor that you have to take care of those moments. And even as I was feeling guilty about minutes versus moments, I'll never forget Leith Anderson, who was the pastor of Wooddale. At the time, he was the head of the National Association of Evangelicals. I don't know what event I was at. I said, hey, could I have lunch with you? Back in the day when I'd say like, hey, can I have lunch with you? I'll pay for the lunch. I'll come with 10 questions. And he said yes. And so I met with him for lunch, and it turned into like once a quarter we'd have lunch, because he said, I believe in you. I see things. I believe in you. And one of those days he said, Rob, you feel guilty about not working all the minutes, and I want to teach you something. And it's an incredible concept. He talked about the warm bunk syndrome, or learning to sleep in a warm bunk. And I said, what in the world? He said, on a submarine, the real estate on the submarine is so precious. Each bed is slept in by 3 different people in 8-hour shifts. Morning, afternoon, and night. They have to use the bed 3 times. So when you go to bed, the person that used it before you was sleeping it, the mattress is already warm. There is no cold mattress that you get into. It's a warmed up mattress that you get into, and you have to learn how to sleep in a warm bunk. I'm going somewhere with this. You're like, where's this going? And he said, now, if the space on a submarine is that precious, why do you think they give the captain of the submarine his own bedroom, his own eating area, his own office? And he's like, yes, he's the captain, but he's going to be responsible for moments where everyone's life on that submarine is in his hands. And his critical decision making needs to be at its peak. So he cannot be wore out. He cannot be run down. He needs to be sharp in that moment. So they give him this amenity so that in the critical moment, he saves their life with clear decision making. And he goes, Rob, you're no longer in leadership for the minutes you log at River Valley. You're there for the moments that are critical to the vision of that church. Some people call it the 5%. You get paid for the 5% in leadership. Like anybody could do 95%, but can you do the 5%? And that was the minutes versus moments. And it set me free as somebody who was raised, very blue collar. Very log the minutes. And I have a great appreciation for blue collar workers and what they do. And they do log minutes and they're worth it. And, we get plumbers and different people that show up at the house and they like, you're going to get me for an hour. It's a guaranteed pay of this. Minutes versus moments. And key leaders, if you're not managing your time and if you look at it as an amenity, like, I get my own dining room, my own bedroom, and my own office, and you aren't managing the moments, you're out the door. But if you see it as something that's supposed to keep you refreshed for those moments, you're going to add huge value.
I feel like sometimes, though, you wonder if you deserved it or like how do you?
Yes.
You talk about the guilt that goes along with
I
it.
had guilt.
How do you said it set you free, but I'm sure there were still times where people will ridicule you and, oh, why were you not out with us, or why didn't you go on this event, or why weren't you a part of
My
this?
own wife. She's like, oh, look at you with your job golfing with that guy from church today. And I was like, okay, well, guess what? I golfed with that guy from church and he underwrote the whole conference and said he's in and he's going to underwrite the whole thing for $50,000 that we're wanting to do. Now, I didn't need to golf with him. Did you not want me to golf with him? He asked me. I asked for a meeting. He asked me to golf with him. I went golfing. And at lunch that day, I asked him to underwrite the whole conference, and he did. I could have stayed in my cube. Is that what you want me to do? And she's like, no, because I started realizing that sometimes those moments are attached to things that are enjoyable. Now, if you're an introvert and you don't like golf or something or whatever, then maybe it's torture for you. But for me, it was like, oh my goodness, I get to go out with this person. We get to go golf. I'm at the place, we're eating lunch, and then I get to do like, this is incredible. But I was getting guilt. The first time, take it away from even being lead pastor, youth pastor, my very first church. I thought my job was to be with the youth and to disciple them and to spend time with the youth. So that's what I did. And so I scheduled one time to go golfing with 7 kids from the youth group and me. And I said, I'm going to go 9 holes with this group, and then we're going to switch, and then I'm going to go to the other group, and then we're all going to go grab pizza afterwards. I was like, let's do it, right? And my secretary, the receptionist for the church, small church, it was receptionist. She answered the phone. They said, is Pastor Rob there? And she said, no, he's out golfing. And the person from church told me later, like, man, she did not like that you were golfing. And I met with her. I said, wait, this is my job. You get paid to answer the phone. I get paid to be with these kids. And yes, I'm going to take them to Valley Fair too. I'm going to go on roller coasters with them someday. But that's my job. Don't ever say that he's out golfing. Say, I'm out with kids in the youth group. Now, if I'm golfing by myself all the time and you see that every day I'm golfing by myself and not with kids in the youth group, that's an issue. But I'm doing my job, and sometimes there are fun things attached to it. But you cannot be in love with the fun things. You have to steward the moment that is attached to the fun thing.
How do you figure out if you are stewarding the moment to where if someone on staff here at River Valley, they asked you and they said, I'm a youth pastor, or I'm a connections pastor, or and I got invited to go to a Twins game with the family, or I got invited to do fill in the blank. How do you know that you're stewarding that time well versus you are just taking advantage of the perks and not
Right.
really working hard? Because sometimes you can feel that tension.
Yeah. And I would say you're going to have to ask yourself, am I gluing people deeper into the church? Like that's one of the things you could be doing. Is there an actionable step that they are now taking because we spent that time together? Like, I'll give you another. It sounds like everything about my life is golf. It's not, but there's a lot of golf. I'm not going to lie because I love golf. It's like my only hobby. I don't fish, I don't hunt, but I will fish or hunt if people invite me. But golf is like my hobby. So I'm meeting with two people in our church, getting to know them. And at the end of the golf round, we're having lunch. And I asked them, the first one, it's in my book, The Generous Life. I asked the first one, because he kept pressing me. Is there anything on your heart for Kingdom Builders? Anything, anything, anything? And finally I said, hey, I was just getting to know you better. But I was going to eventually ask you this, but I'll ask you today. Would you like to give $1 million above your tithe as soon as the Lord enables you? I think you have the gift of giving and you could give that amount in 10 years or less. I really believe it. And he said, I'm in. And the other guy, I said, no pressure. You're a business guy. He goes, you can't pressure me. He goes, but I'm in too. Well, there was an actionable step, the quantifiable, actionable step. Both of them are now on a journey to give $1 million above their tithe to Kingdom Builders. So did I glue them in? Well, a little bit, but more it was the actionable step. Is there a challenge to their, because some of you are like, well, I can't ask for $1 million. Okay, but did you go out with 2 new families from church and you asked them to go on a global team? And they agreed. And there's an actionable step that they're now going on. After that Twins game or dinner or golf, they're now going on the global team. And there's a step. So you're looking at that. Or see what I'm saying? Is there a result? Was a need met? Is there an actionable step? Is there glue? Because sometimes you just do it out of glue. You're just trying to say, hey, you're new to the church, and I want you to find. I've got 2 other new families, and I want you to go. And you're gluing them into the body.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in the sense of what's my purpose here? And if your purpose is just to hang out, again, that's a value, but it probably is one of the lower values in the sense of if we're just
Yes.
here to hang out. Again, still can be helping glue, but I think about asking people, hey, what do you feel like God's asking you to do in your next step in your faith journey, right?
Right.
Even if you're not comfortable to maybe make the hard ask for you come on this global team with me or you do this, all of a sudden they might reveal something. And then if they don't, I think you kind of have something prepared and ready to, well, can I ask you this? I mean, we use global team as an example. We call our mission trips global teams
Right.
because people have connotations about what a mission trip is. And
Right.
all of our trips look very different. Some of them might look more like your traditional hands working.
Mhm.
Others might be more prayer focused. Others might be more working with missionaries. So there's a lot of different components to them. And that's why we call them global teams. But I don't know what the statistics are specifically, but I think that the number that our global project team would say is somewhere between 50 and 60% of people say yes when asked directly in person to go on a global team with you. Now, we're talking about a week vacation, thousands of
Yes.
dollars, and 50 to 60% of people say yes. Now, it
Yes.
might be 40 or 50,
Yeah.
but that's for a high bar. Think about asking someone to be in your small group.
Or to go to Freedom Encounter,
Totally,
or to
yeah.
Alpha, or
Yeah.
to be a table lead, or hey, is it time for you to step up and be a small group leader?
But I think what and Connor, he would be cheering and singing my praises here right now. But I think a lot of people try to automate their way through this stuff, and it's like if you send an email, hey, I would like you to give $100,000 to our building campaign.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. There has to be a relationship there,
and trust.
right? We're talking about these big steps and these moments. I think about the disciples when the church is growing in Acts and they see this happening, and then they say,
Right.
we
It's
cannot,
not for us to wait on tables.
they said, we can't neglect the poor,
Right.
but we can't do it all on our own. We've
Right.
got to find, the first care pastors, right? We got to find other people
Yes.
who can do this. And I think that's something that can help set people free. And I want you to talk about this is our job as pastors is not to do the work. It's to, what does the scripture say? To equip the saints to do the work of the ministry.
Right.
Talk about how you had to overcome, you've talked about it a little bit on the podcast before, but like super pastor,
Do it all.
500, do it all. You're everything for everybody. When it starts to, you have to delegate, you have to give responsibilities away. There's the leadership teaching that you're talking about, this minutes, first moments. But there's a difference between the concept and the actual implementation in people's life. I think people still struggle to feel, well, I'm actually not worth it and I'm not doing enough. And talk about how when you had to let go of being super pastor.
Yeah. I mean, I realize I'm going to run out of minutes. So I have to multiply my work. And you hit on something that is a huge hot spot for me. And that is when pastors are doing all the work. Okay. Most churches, they're like, what's wrong with that? That's what we pay them for. A pastor, according to Ephesians, is there for the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry. It's not for them to do it all. And I got to tell you, with 11 campuses, I'll visit a campus, and something within me just boils. Like, I forget where I was the other day. I won't even say because I don't want to embarrass the campus, but the pastor ran and did this, and then they went and ran and did this, and then they went and ran to this, and then they ran the thing on the stage, and I just thought to myself, I'm not close enough to tell them what I think, but if I was, I would, because
This was at a different church?
no, it was our campus, one of ours. But I'll never forget, I was on the front row, again, I won't say the campus, on Christmas Eve, and I think it was Christmas Eve service, and I was going to do the preaching there live at this campus. And I said, hey, I'm up next. I said, who's going to put the pulpit up there? Because I was sitting next to one of the pastors, and he goes, I will. I go, if you put the pulpit up there when I go to preach, I will be letting you go at the end of the service, and you will not have a job. And I said, if I'm paying you to do all the errands around here, you're not doing the right thing. You should have someone in leadership that was assigned to do that would think it's the good thing. But if you run it up there, I'm going to be letting you go at the end of you. So I said, you got about 2 minutes of this special music number. If I was you, I would text somebody.
Sounds a bit harsh.
It was. But my thing is,
You wouldn't actually have fired him?
I think I might have. I think, because my point is,
You're trying to get a principle across.
I can't afford to pay you to run like a chicken with your head cut off. I want you to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And if you can't even find somebody to put the pulpit up there on a Sunday morning, and you're the pastor, first of all, you're sending a terrible message to the church. I am your servant. I am here to serve. I'll come over and replace your battery. I might clean your bathroom for you. That is not what, yes, we will help anyone, and nothing is below us. But we should be equipping people so that on Sunday morning, I'm not running around. Now, I know I'm guilty. I was the one buying the food for the church picnic year 1, year 2. And then I was like, I'm an idiot. I'm not even doing what the Bible says. I've got to stop this. I'm creating an unhealthy church. So that's why it's such a big thing to me.
Yeah, and I think it's attention, because I think, you talk about the servant. We look at Jesus. He's a servant leader. He's serving
Well, I'm
people.
serving on Serve Your City Day. I'm going to be out there picking up garbage and doing it with everybody. But I'm not going to do it on Sunday. Like, we're all doing. And by the way, when I walk through the lobby, you can ask anybody.
Yeah.
I bet you we have hundreds of people that have watched me pick up garbage. I'm walking through the lobby. I lean down, pick it up. I was trained that at Valley Fair. Everyone here is a custodian, and it's just in my nature. I pick it up. So I'm not saying I'm above, pick up that garbage, but I'm saying there are things you are called to do. Be fresh for the sermon. Don't be out there parking cars. Let somebody else park the cars.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to get at, because I know.
You're trying to make me not sound like a prima donna.
I'm just imagining somebody clipping that out and being like, "You're not here to serve." Your point though is you're here to equip people, and I think that, like you said, if you're trying to park, think of an extreme example. You're parking the car, you're walking them in, you're greeting them, you're checking them into kids, you're walking them into the kids, then you're walking them to their seat.
No, let me use mine. We were portable. I drove every Saturday night to the Ryder truck rental place, and I rented the truck. Okay. So Saturday night, I'm driving over there, renting the truck. Then I got to park the truck in my driveway. And if it's really cold, I got to park the truck in my driveway and block the truck in with my car. And there's a diesel truck running all night. 5 a.m. in the morning, I'm driving. And the reason I'm having it run all night is because it's freezing cold. And if you leave a diesel not running at night, the diesel will gel at like minus 20 or whatever. And so then I had to spray thrust starter fuel and flames come out of the carburetor just to get the thing go. Okay, so I'm doing this. Then I'm driving to the church, helping to load, wearing my winter boots, wearing like, Carhartt workout. Okay, loading up the equipment, driving to the church, unloading the equipment, helping them set up. Then I'm changing into my dress clothes. And then I'm getting ready to preach the sermon. I get done. Then I put all that back on and go back to the thing, unload this, return the truck, and start could I not delegate that to somebody? Could somebody in the ministry say, hey, I actually like driving trucks. I do it for, a living. I would do that, You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I couldn't even delegate the setup team. And then I had to preach. One time I actually forgot my dress shoes and I had to preach in sorrel boots. Like I was dress clothes and boots. So I'm just saying, that's me. I know this. And nothing's beneath me. And what you're saying to your leader is there's more important things for you to do with your moments.
I think that's the hardest part of like our culture is that phrase, there's more important things.
How about if we said there's more unique to you?
I know. I think that, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Or exclusive. There are exclusive things that you need to do.
The language around
I
that,
know.
all I'm trying to say is I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying that I think there's what people are struggling with is this tension between I'm supposed to serve and nothing's beneath me, but also I'm supposed to equip and empower and lead, and you need those things. And some people wear that as a badge of honor. Everything
But
you
here's
just
the
said.
thing. No one's better, but people have greater responsibility. That would be a way to say it. I would say, listen, no one's better than anyone, but I have greater responsibility in this moment. I have to have this sermon. I have to be prepared to preach this. I have a greater responsibility in this moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would think of I always think of what's the biblical example. You have a lot of Old Testament examples, obviously Moses,
But it's really the book of Acts.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have Moses because he's like, I'm doing it all. And his father-in-law is like, listen, some of this can be handled by these, then the next level, then it gets to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And think about David. When he almost got killed, his men said to him, like, you're worth 1,000 of us or 10,000, whatever it was. They literally were saying, your strategic moments that you manage, that's worth more than you fighting in this battle. We need to protect you.
In Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome. And basically, when somebody rises above the rest, you got to cut them off to even it.
It's all over.
It is all over. I do wonder if that's more of what I'm talking about too, rather than trying to, oh, it's okay, everyone's the same, everyone's all good. Just acknowledging that there are people with levels of leadership. It again doesn't mean that there's an innate value of their life over yours, but just like the value you have. I mean, it's the same thing in people's companies. If you talk about, well, I want to be paid more. Well, are you doing the same thing you've always done? Right? Well,
how many people can do what you do? 400 million.
Actually, that new auto register can do what I did, and that self-checkout.
So Connor comes to me after he has his first job, Little Caesars, and he says, what can I do to get a raise? And I said, well, how many people can do what you do? He said, anybody. I said, you're not getting a raise. And he goes, oh, if I learn how to do the register, I could get a raise because not everybody at the Little Caesars knows how to run the register. I said, yes, that's how you get a raise. Less people can do what you do. So it's just that understanding of I'm going to become valuable. I'm going to make myself steward those moments instead of just minutes. And nobody is above the minutes. I'll never forget. I read this about Charles Stanley. Like he had his big, tape of the month club and books and everything. And during Christmas rush, he would say, I'm not recording any shows. I'm going to join you guys on the line. And we got to get the product out. There's a time for that. There's a time for everybody in the trenches, and then there's a time for This is the moment I have to steward. And I was thinking, I don't know if you want to go here, but I was thinking for pastors, because primarily mostly pastors listen to this, but people in the marketplace could adapt this. But you better have a great sermon, okay? And put the time into that. And I don't know if you need this 16, 20 hours a week. What people say, like 24 hours. I don't know. I've never put that much into it just because that's a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, I've
And
heard people say like a day and a half or
and
a
I read
day.
fast. I read
Yeah.
fast. So, but and it's funny because a couple years ago, my mom, who she's been on here, your grandma, she came up to me and she goes, "It's a good thing you preach good sermons, or you couldn't travel as much as you do." She's like, "If you don't keep knocking it out of the park, you better scale back that travel."
I also think just interesting people have more material for illustrations and
Without a
stories, and
doubt.
obviously studying the word is something that you can do anywhere.
Correct. So sermons, you better do that. And then there's crisis. In a crisis, you better know how to handle the crisis. And that's where we've had people arrested. We've been broke. We've had all these different crises. I handled those crisis
Is there any
moments.
themes in crisis that you would say this is the way that I've handled? Because honestly, I think as people who know you more, pastors who you help train and coach and lead, and just people who look up to you in that way, many people would say, if I'm in a crisis, I'm calling Pastor Rob because he's dealt with,
Sure.
you've dealt with a lot of them. And so they know you've been through them before. But is there any sort of method that you've developed? Maybe it's not even implicit, but you're explicit.
And I think it's in the same book, Fix It. I think I talk a little bit, but it's like in that moment, I want to know what's our current reality. What's our best solution? Pick it. And then while we're picking that best solution, if a better one comes up, pivot and take the better one. But the inactivity in a crisis of, what's our current reality? And then what's the best option? Go.
Well, because a lot of people just freeze.
They do. Like when we thought you were gone in China, remember that? We were there on a global team in China. And we thought you were like abducted. And your mom was like, oh, she's like crying and couldn't move. And I was like, listen, find a picture of Logan, get it down to the front desk. We're going to send it out to everybody, and you guys are going to go back to where the last time we saw him, and you're going to wait there. You guys are going to go back to that spot, and you're going to start wandering out from that spot. You guys are going to, my mind was like firing fast. And your mom was like, oh, and I'm like, I didn't do that, but it was like, in my mind, I was like, get together. I didn't slap her, but in my mind, I was like, get it together. Like, I need you to focus.
It's like fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah. And so to me in the crisis, so many people just freeze or they stall. They just think if I ignore it, it'll go away. It's not going away. But I'm like, what's our current reality? What's the best solution? Let's move on it. If a better one comes available, let's pivot. It's always right to change your mind if it's changing it to the right answer. And so boom, 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 And so that's what I'm thinking. And in the crisis, don't sensationalize, like have a real picture of what it is instead of like, it's the worst ever. Like,
I think a lot of people try to get sympathy from people by making it
Yes.
sound worse. And it's really bad. It's
They
horrible. It's
sensationalize-
terrible.
Yeah, don't sensationalize for sympathy, and also don't estimate it and then miss the moment. Like understand the gravity of it.
Well, particularly because people, you want people to look after the fact and say, after the fact, I'm grateful how you handled it, not during the moment. Because during the moment, everyone's having different responses. I think about COVID. There's a lot of people that look back at their leadership, whether it be in their company or in their church, and go, I don't really like how they handled that. Now, you might not have liked it in the moment, or you might have liked it in the moment, but you look back and you go, you know what? Yeah, you guys handled that. It wasn't perfect, but I would say you guys handled that pretty well. And I would say for the most part, a lot of people have said that about us. Now, were we perfect? No doubt.
I
We
give
were not.
myself a 9 out of 10
Yeah, well, that's good.
for COVID.
But I think that you have people that go, we stayed closed too long. You have
Yep.
other people that go, yeah, we kind of defied and never listened to anything, and we kind of lost some reputation there. We were somewhere in between,
Yep.
and we feel strong about that. Now, there's probably other people that might disagree and say you handled it terribly.
You stepped onto the leadership team during COVID.
I did. Yeah, that was
And
wild.
what did we do? We had weekly meetings.
Yeah.
And we were like Zooming, and we were constantly what's our current reality? What's our best solution? What do we need to change? What's our
I
current
would
reality?
say we had a
Yeah,
step ahead because of all our missionaries. They were seeing and reporting back what was happening around the world, and we have just connections. So we are very global
and then we
minded.
split our team into two so they didn't infect each other. And then we had staff meeting in separate locations. And I mean,
We were already equipped for
we
video.
were on it. I mean, but anyways,
Yeah, but also you don't know. I mean, that's the thing about a crisis. You can't fully prepare for a crisis because a crisis, kind of by definition, is either you didn't expect it or it's turned into something far bigger than you ever thought it would, and you have to solve that problem. But that, I mean, I was reading a book the other day. Maybe it was 21 Irrefutable Laws, but he said a leadership, a leader's worth or a leadership's biggest test of their worth is in a crisis.
sure.
And when you have that crisis come and when you flounder, when you flop, it's versus people that rise to the occasion. You say, wow, I didn't know you had that in you.
Right.
And so that's big. I interrupted you though. You said preaching, handling crisis, and there were two others.
I think fundraising, like, the finances, like a chairman of a board is responsible to get capital for their expansion, for their ongoing needs. Like that's a big part of it to make sure that investors want to keep giving capital. And then it's culture. Do you have the moments to confront the culture, uh, like attacks or variances where all of a sudden and you're like, nope, that's not who we are. And can you do the discipline? A lot of leaders can't do that. And you're like, well, the reason you're not going to the next level is you're not disciplining, you're not correcting. There's also vision. Can you forecast where the future and where you're going? These are key things that a leader needs to steward, and have it move forward.
Was there something that it took you a while to delegate that after you delegated it, you realized, oh my goodness, I should have delegated this a long time ago, but you felt like that was
Care.
something.
Care. And it just was because as a pastor, you just felt like you care for the sheep. That's what you do. It's care, care, care. And I was burning myself out with care. I did every pre-marriage counseling class for 10 weddings one summer. That was 6 sessions. Their
So
rehearsal
60 sessions
60 sessions plus each of them had a rehearsal and a wedding. So it was 80 engagements separately, not even together,
in one summer.
in one summer.
I mean,
And that was
that's
the
pretty
summer
much every day.
you and your brother said, we hate weddings. And I thought, if I don't fix this, they're never going to get married, you know? And so, but it was like, that's pastoral care. And then it was every hospital visit had to be me. And every baby dedication had to be me. And every sick person, had to be me. And it was like, it was the care. And I felt like I was the care pastor. And it was, no, the body can care for one another.
Isn't that interesting though? That's the first thing that Acts talks about was the care for the
Yeah.
poor and the care for
And
the
that was
sick.
the thing that was the hardest thing for me to share. I didn't get rid of it. I share it. And because I mean, even this last week, I was praying with somebody that is battling things. I was saying, praise God, you're back from your fighting and your bone or your stem cell transplant. Looks like it's working. You're back in church. Tim at Apple Valley from Lead Ushers.
Johnson, yeah.
Yeah. So he took no, actually, I'm sorry. Ben Karasev. Ben took a picture of me. A little boy, it was Easter Sunday, okay? And a little boy was battling allergies, and his mom said, would you please pray for my son? And so I said, yeah, I won't even leave this spot. Just go get him. And she brings him back to me, and I said, hey, I'm going to pray for you for your allergies. And I laid hands on him and prayed for him. And then he said, can I give you a hug? And I said, yeah. And so Ben comes up to me afterwards and shows me a picture of me down on one knee, speaking to this little boy, praying for him. I didn't ask him to do it. He just took it. And he goes, you've never lost a pastor's heart. Like, I didn't delegate care out to everybody. I shared the care, and I still have a pastor's heart.
Well, it's what Paul talks about when he in his letters all the time. He says, "I long to be with you. If I'm allowed to, if the Lord wills me to get back to you, I would love to do that."
That's my multi-site scripture.
Yeah.
I long to be with you. You got to know that. I want to be at every campus, but I can't. but I would long to.
Mhm. Is there something that you delegated that you had to take back where you realize I actually delegated that where
Yeah,
actually
culture. Um, I early on, I had my first two executive pastors both wanted me to delegate all the meetings with the team, and were like, "You can be gone. Why don't you just go hang out and golf or do whatever you want to do? We got it. We got the staff meeting without you." And I was like, "That's awesome." And then I realized I was delegating away culture. And my job is to be the chief culture officer. And I can't delegate that away. I need to be in the all staff and making sure that the culture. So I gave that away and took it back. And then I'm thinking of other things like that I had to give away over the years. But I mean, yeah, it's that's the one that I had to take back.
Is there anything that, delegation obviously implies that someone else should be doing this, but is there anything you did that you felt like nobody should be doing this? Like we should just eliminate this completely. I think of, people bring up AI or they bring up other tools where it's eliminated it, but is there anything that, I mean, it kind of gets into the calendar hacks a little bit, but I think sometimes people are doing things that just might not, maybe they shouldn't be done. Maybe you shouldn't have to do them. Is there anything that comes to mind when it comes to maybe it's not even ministry, but just in a daily life that the whole point of delegation is this is still valuable. It's
Right.
just someone else is better suited to do this versus no, that's just not a valuable thing for anybody to
Well,
do.
I think about when Bob Goff spoke here years ago. He said, "Every Thursday I quit something." That gave me the heebie-jeebies. I was like, "Oh, every Thursday you quit something?" And we hold on to things forever and ever and ever. And even when we should quit them, we don't. So I'm challenged by that. I don't do what he does, but I am challenged like, okay, what just needs to have lived its course? And nobody says like, I'm angry that we're not having horse-drawn carriages. It's like, yeah, we're glad we have cars. We pray that Teslas are self-driving. We can all sit there and work or
I cannot wait
rest
for fully
or
self-driving.
sleep
I don't
or
have a Tesla, but once all the cars are approved to be fully self-driving, that is a day I'm excited for.
I mean, could you imagine if you could just like have family time or order food through the drive-through and not have to eat it and steer with your knee and just enjoy a meal
Well, we
together?
do have DoorDash, so you don't even have to go to the drive-through.
I know, but I'm just saying on the road trip, like if you need to go somewhere, or if you said, "Hey, we're going to golf and we're gonna go to Mammoth, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
3.5 hours,
road trips. Yeah,
and we're just gonna talk and have fun, and we don't have to worry." I mean, so anyways, but yeah, what got me onto that? I really
I was
got
saying
excited about
quitting. You're quitting
self-driving.
something. You're saying quit driving. You don't have to
Yeah,
drive
I'm just
anymore.
saying, like,
Yeah.
there are things that have just oh, yeah, the horse-drawn carriage. Like, there are things that have just run their course, and they're good. Let it go. Let it go. And you just say it's not meeting the need, or it's meeting the need of a few, but it's not giving the results, or the effort is not worth the results. There's no glue, there's no next step. It's just become comfort food. And you say, "All right, we're gonna let that one go." And it's hard. Most people never want to let it go. What was the guy's book that he wrote? He is the founder of Shake Shack,
Danny Meyer.
Danny Meyer, and he talked about there's the overwhelmers, the underwhelmers, and the whelmers. And he said the overwhelmers, those are your high performers. You want to keep them. Your underwhelmers, you let them go because they're just underwhelming. But the whelmers, the ones that are just kind of hanging out, he said you got to let the whelmers go too. You want to keep trying to get overwhelmers, because a whelmer is taking up a spot for somebody that could be an overwhelmer. And I think that with ministries and things that you're doing, is it an underwhelming? Let it go. Is it a whelmer and it's just kind of there? Have the courage to call the day on it and try to find an overwhelming thing.
I also think that when you finally see somebody who gets into their area of giftedness,
Yeah.
it's super exciting and an opportunity. And sometimes your lack of delegation is actually holding back the overwhelmer because they don't have the work to do. You're trying to do it. You maybe the person listening, you are the whelmer
Yeah.
in that specific area as the leader. You're holding back your team from achieving because you're taking the responsibility that they're better at. And if you
Yes.
only gave it to them, they'd actually be able to thrive in their work instead of you holding on to it.
My first personal assistant, Sally. she was with me, and she said, Pastor Rob, you are terrible at details. You're terrible. And she said, do you know that I get excited with details? I mean, it is what I was made for. If you would let me handle the details, cast the vision and let me handle the details, I'll bring it back to you and I will be so excited with the details. I was like, you love the details? She goes, I was made for the details. And I was like, you can have the details. But I thought because I didn't like the details, she didn't like the details. And so I never
I
gave it to
struggle
her.
with that.
And she's like, no, you don't understand. This is the way I'm wired. And I'm like, you are? You know,
I feel that way about things, is that like numbers and analytics and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, I love that stuff. That's so easy for me. And then there's people who feel, that I don't like that. And I just think that's crazy. But there's other things that I don't like to do either, like responding to emails. If email went away tomorrow, I would be so happy.
I was envious. Years ago, John Maxwell said, yep, I'm not going to learn email. He's
Thinking
like,
about
on
quitting.
paper, I'm not
I'm
going to do
quit
it.
email.
He's like, I'm not going to do it. And he goes, I'm going to have somebody respond to all my emails. I will never do it. I kind of wish that
Will
was
you
me.
let me quit email? Please?
You know my voicemail.
Please?
My voicemail is, hey, you've reached Pastor Rob, and I don't check voicemail. And if you need me, text me or call the church.
So I'm asking for your permission to change.
Did you notice how I dodged that?
Change my autoresponder to say, "Hi, I'm Logan. I don't respond to emails."
If you can pull a Bob Goff on it and do it.
Permission. Any last advice to people who struggle with empowering, delegating, time management as a leader, grabbing a hold of those moments instead of just focusing on the minutes?
Yeah, I think your posture has to be right. You can't demand, like, you can't be walking around like, you know why I'm going on this trip? Because I control the moments. If you are a jerk like that, your team is going to feel it. It's almost got to be like David's mighty men saying to him, hey, listen, we know your heart is there. Can we protect you? Could you please do this instead? Do you remember? Okay, I'll use Argentina. Do you remember that?
Maybe we've talked about it on the podcast before, but
If we haven't, but it just hit me right there. When we went on the global team when you were 13 and you picked Argentina and we're down there doing a construction team and they found out, hey, this guy has a church, I think at the time, maybe 2000 or something. And they said, would you please teach at the Bible study instead or the Bible
school,
college? Yeah. And I said, well, I'm here with a father-son trip and we're doing construction. He is in charge. He gets to say, because we're spending time together. And you look at me, you go, you are no good at this. Like, you're not good at construction at all. Go do what you're good at. Let's have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, and you go do your thing. And it was freeing because I'm terrible at construction, and yet you're amazing at construction. You built this.
Yeah, it is crazy how
I can't even get this microphone.
Well, yeah, you're so
built
gifted
this.
in so many areas, but when it comes to putting things together, tools, all that stuff, I mean,
I'm worthless.
pretty much.
My dad said when I was growing up, he goes, hey, go read a book. That's what he said. He goes, go read a book. He goes, you're terrible at this.
Well, it skipped a generation,
There you
but thank you, Grandpa, for the skills in building and with tools. But with that, thank you. I mean, there's a lot more we could go to. I know we could go down other
I'm going to give a
veins,
challenge.
but
I'm going to give a
yeah.
challenge. If you're paid for your minutes, steward your minutes well and show more productivity than your minutes are being paid for. Because Proverbs says, if you see a person gifted in their trade or skill, they will get before kings. And I've always held on to that. If I show my value in the minutes you give me, my gift will get me before kings. And then on the other hand, I want to speak to those that have moments and you're in leadership. Don't have that attitude, that terrible attitude of, I'm in charge, I've earned this room, you're nothing. Your team will not want to work for you. You need to be willing to do whatever it takes, but be protected so you can do what you really need to do. So show the value and show the appreciation. That's how I would say it. Show the value of the minutes and show the appreciation for the moments you get to steward.